Well, hello, all you Genlock positive greenhorns out there. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din coming at you with another Genlock episode review. This time it's season 1's episode 4 titled Training Days, and that's DAZE. Very much like, I've been knocked into a daze, or I was still in a daze after I woke up. But that is not the major subject of this episode, as we see Chase waking up our recruits for a full-on day of training. As everyone is still getting accustomed to their new suits, the food in the area, which I love the fact that Kazu specifically makes like eggs and ramen early in the morning, which becomes a running thing for, their breakfast routine. Everybody's pretty much down for eggs, especially. And them getting accustomed to the Genlock synchronization program as well. And they do the very common stuff, but now they have to get accustomed to doing it in bodies that are not their own. They do things such as shooting training, practicing going for cover and ducking and dodging, their maneuverability, sparring in terms of hand-to-hand combat, where Kazu gets very overzealous, but that's Kazu's thing. He likes to get up close and personal in order to just, wail on the opponent. So everybody has their own quirks, their own personal touches. There are things that they fall back on in terms of combat. A few of them are a little bit more flexible than the rest, but it's getting pretty obvious that a lot of this training is kind of taking a toll on their, physical and mental state to a certain degree. And we have Valentina, whose thing is always just sticking to the back line, sniping. She's a great marksman, so that counts for something. We also have Weller giving out lectures to them as a whole in terms of their, systems and how they can only be in for so long, or else they would risk the possibility of them no longer being accustomed to no longer being able to be back in their own bodies. It's a very touchy subject, because it's just like you're out of body for so long that it go too long and you're no longer able to resync with your own body, and that could create a lot of nervous issues and stuff like that. Stuff that I feel like would naturally come up in discussions in terms of doing something so advanced as to, digitize your brain to a certain degree and send all the necessary signals to get everything to function as if a giant mech were your own body. That is some very advanced robotics right there. But considering, how far prosthesis and stuff like that has come, all things considered, since the signals that the brain sends out are all electrical impulses, there is the possibility something like this could be possible somewhere down in the future. I'd give it like 50 to 100 years before something like this were possible, but, given our rapid growth in terms of, robotic prosthesis and everything that we've done up until now in terms of robotics, enough time and funding, I think it might be possible. You also get to see the Genlock team decked out in their new armor in order to, protect themselves so that their Holions are not all naked and stuff. Weller also goes on to discuss, the fact that, we don't want any overclocking, because once you reach a certain point, as demonstrated by Chase, an emergency system will come online that will just boot you right back to your body. So that leaves your mech prone and vulnerable for the most part. He also goes over the suits and what they're capable of, and how, powered up they increase your physical power, but also help to assist in terms of your Genlock abilities and all that. So, they pretty much have to wear them almost constantly because it helps with the, connecting of their nervous system in terms of digitalized programming and all that good stuff. So, if you really want the nitty gritty of the ins and outs, but I love the amount of thought and, actual mental power that has gone into the actual function of each aspect of these mechs. Now, naturally, certain questions arise in terms of the practicality and the capability of certain things like that. But especially in terms of cost, like this cost for something like this would be astronomical even in the future. But all things considered, it's still very fascinating things right here. We also see that they have a shared vision for the most part. So where you might be looking around the corner, somebody from another angle sees that someone's ready to ambush you, and you're able to avoid danger like that. So it actually really does help out everyone in the long run. There's also something they mentioned called brain sharing, where you're able to see completely through the eyes of someone else. So, but that seems like it could get a little bit murky if not done properly. It's also mentioned that you can also age out of the program, and it's stated that Leon August is actually Genlock positive. He could have been a Hellion pilot, but unfortunately, because of his age, well, and I'm not sure. I think it might be once you hit your 30s, so I got a couple of years, but once you hit around your 30s, you no longer have the, capabilities to just regenerate the, cells in your body needed to, constantly go under. I'm not going to even pretend like I completely understand everything in terms of this, but, it's very much like how once you get older, you don't heal as quickly from scars and injuries. That's why if you've ever seen an older person, they tend to, certain old people tend to bleed a lot more, get injured a lot more easily from very menial situations and stuff like that, and the scars don't heal as well anymore. That's ultimately just a result of getting older. Your cells don't function as quickly and as rapidly as they would have when you were much younger. But, as time passes, you see that the trainees are starting to get the hang of everything, starting to get better at taking down the, holographic models and all that good stuff, and eventually we have to get to the point where Miranda and Chase have to have a little bit of a heart-to-heart, because Chase has been kind of giving Miranda enough space, like, okay, I get it, this is a lot to take in, a lot's gone on, there's been a long gap of time, you need some time to think things over, and I've given you that, but, I want to hit you up and just have an actual conversation, because we used to be cool. He knows that she's moved on with Jody and all that, so, he decides to just, at least ask how the trainees are faring in terms of her eyes. Miranda gets right down to brass tacks and the problems that everyone faces, and that's more specifically that they're a group of loners in a group. Valentina is all about sticking to the back line because she's just more into sniping. Cammy isn't so much that great in terms of firearms. She just is she walks around like a newborn deer, falling over at every instance, and she can't wield a weapon worth shit. So there's that, and Kazu goes charging in headlong at every opportunity, which becomes very apparent why he kept getting into situations with his commanding officers. You never want a soldier who's just going to go charging in and lead your platoon into a major ambush as they try to save his ass. So, they're not too great, and she says that they're eventually going to get their asses handed to them on the mission that they go on. But when it's all said and done, Chase, wants to know how, him and Miranda are doing. And Miranda kind of goes off to a certain degree about the whole Jody situation. She's like, look, man, you were gone. There was all this, emotions I've run through over time. And I've stated this. It's like she had to, get over his death, come to terms with his death, allow herself to actually start to move on and not feel guilty about this, because it's not like they broke up, he died, and there's still going to be these lingering feelings that make you feel like, oh, I shouldn't do this, it feels like I'm cheating on him, but it's like, no, he's dead, you can't do anything about that. And now that he's back, showing that he's in her life once again, it's just like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to rationalize this to myself after all this time? It's just like, am I a bad person for moving on? Am I this, that, and the other? It's a very murky situation as a whole. But you see a little bit of here and there, this and that and the other. But, Chase tries to get her to understand, it's like, look, that's fine, it's okay if you feel confused. I feel confused too, and I feel bad that I wasn't there with you when you needed me to be there with you. Ultimately, he wasn't allowed to come back and greet her because, the project was under wraps, and even if he did come back to her, it's just like, well, what do I even say to you? It's just like, because, it took time. It would take time to come to terms with the fact that, exactly half of you is missing. I can only imagine the amount of personal torment he had to go through just to get comfortable with the fact that he would never live a normal life again. And he even suggests the fact that his mom and his sister might not have made it. That's the way he phrases it, at least in my mind. So, there's that too. And even if he had just said fuck it and come to see her, there's the potential that they would have just up and pulled the plug on him. So he would have just died on her all over again. It's just, hey, I'm here, and dead. It's this complex well of emotions, and I appreciate them just addressing all of this, because there's no way there wouldn't be this complex well of emotions. But there's also the hint that, there's still these lingering feelings between the two, and this, that, and the other, so we'll have to see where that goes from here. Whew. On a different note, we see Mingus talking it up with Cammy, who's projecting from a Holion, lamenting the fact that she feels so awkward in her Holion because the center of gravity feels off, the legs don't feel right, she feels like she should be lower, and that makes sense, she was the first to kind of just, with the way that everybody else was able to adapt to the body types of their Holions, it's obviously Cammy needs a little bit more TLC in terms of how her Holion is, where the center of gravity is on her Holion. So Mingus actually directs her to the fact that they might need to just remove some chunks of armor in order to get newer legs, maybe use the massive 3D printer that they have, which, I'm pretty sure will one day be incorporated in terms of military power if it isn't already. And even though he's not supposed to, Mingus is just too good of a guy, so he starts sending her over, different schematics and the Holion plans and all this stuff to potentially customize her mech, which is exactly what we see in the opening. If you watch the opening, the various ways that everyone customizes their mech. So, it'll be interesting to see how we get from point A, just a standard issue armor, to point B. And it's obvious that Mingus is also getting ready to put some additional stuff onto Chase's Holion because he feels like there's a few things missing, which, if you've seen the opening, it's wings. So, it'd be nice to see them personalized a little bit more. But as the Genlock team has a bit of a day off, they're trying their best in order to, put their bodies at ease from everything that's happened. but a few of them are feeling restless because they don't want to be stuck on base all day. Ultimately, Cammy proposes that they go online and play a bit of a game, which at first everyone's not truly down with, but it's just like, well, if we have to be stuck on base this entire time, might as well surf the ether, which is their version of the internet. More than likely because it's not, it's more localized with the situation going on with the Union. And we get to see their various designs and costumes with, the Kazu wanting to look a little bit more punk, and the fact that Madrani wears a hijab, in there with the longer hair, so a bit more in touch with her culture and all that good stuff. Which isn't bad. It's just like if that's how she feels about the situation. But ultimately Cammy does comment on the fact that she doesn't wear that in real life, so it's just kind of like, there's a backstory there as well. And then there's Valentina, who, in this projection feels a little bit more comfortable with Valentine, where we find out that they are gender fluid. So, and it's very much implied that Valentina has done this a lot, gone back and forth, especially given the technological breakthrough in terms of this universe. So, even when Kazu's just like, well, what were you born as? It's just like, you will never know. So I love that little bit of a moment. A very interesting situation as a whole, honestly. And then we see them sift through various costumes because, Cammy's trying to get them to decide on, what they should do in game. Also love the fact that Chase's thing is he just wants to look like himself. That's what he's the most comfortable with, considering, he doesn't really have the ability to look normal. So you see them in something that's very akin to the ODST gear in Halo, red versus blue and all that good stuff. And then, pirate attire, which is actually pretty badass. I especially love Madrani's outfit. Very cool. And then we get the red versus blue looks, but Madrani has the textures on the rest of her skin look a little off, so that takes me off guard to a certain degree. But ultimately everyone just kind of goes off and does their own thing, not really wanting to get involved for the most part with each other. However, all of a sudden the ether just crashes and goes down as an alarm goes off in base, and as they fly off to take care of things, as all the various units are mobilized, it turns out that the Union is attacking the headquarters, or one of the greater outposts of the ether, which, to them feels a little off, because it's just like, well, they don't normally do stuff like that. Usually they're more about the slow spread of their influence. They want to attack specific locations, and the only other time they've actually done that was the attack on New York. So they're definitely up to something. It's also discussed the fact that, they're flying in the Genlock team closer to the action simply because of the fact that, it's kind of like being closer to the modem if you have something for Wi-Fi. It's just like the closer you are, the better your connection as a whole. So they keep them close, that way they can keep the uptime of the Genlock as good as possible and as lengthy as possible. So everybody goes in, battling the Union forces, with Kimmy still being very uneasy on her feet. In comes Chase, just destroying a whole bunch of drones with Madrani, and as the Union forces move in, Kazu starts to just get fed up with just shooting, and he just starts throwing stuff at them. Well, Valentina snipes them from above. Something I had to make note of is the fact that their camouflage, when it was first activated before I was told it was camouflage, I'm like, man, they look a lot darker in certain places. Like, what's going on? It's a little hard to see them. They're just like, hey, activate your camouflage. And I'm just like, oh, that would explain why I'm not able to see them as well. Just like, oh, it's very effective, all things considered. But Cammy is very hesitant about even firing upon any of their mechs or their humanistic soldiers. So when she does fire, it ricochets off a tower and destroys some of their drones and stuff like that. And as the Union forces move on the Parity military, Kazu comes in just completely wrecking them. And we even have a moment where, Kazu is kind of asked, it's just like, could you keep any kind of collateral damage to a minimum? We're actually trying to save the city, not destroy it more. But, Chase notes the fact that they're not really hitting a lot of resistance here. They're not really putting up too much of a fight, and that doesn't sit too well with him. So as they move in and send in some drones that map out the ether building, they find that there's, it's all clear. There doesn't seem to be anything really wrong going on here. So, ultimately the command is given to have the Hellions just patrol the outer perimeter while, the bipedal mechs and the drones and all the, ground troops stay close to the ether building. However, Cammy notices what looks to be a bipedal mech coming at her, and she thinks it's another Hellion. She doesn't want to friendly fire them, but she's immediately told, yo, open fire, that's not one of ours, do what you need to. And this mech is named Nemesis, and I only know that because, I looked at external sources, but it's just like, what the and this thing is super creepy too, and kind of cool, because it has 4 sets of arms, and it has this cloud of this nano mist just surrounding it, and it encloses Cammy within this dome. So Muller's just like, guys, get over there as quickly as possible, as Nemesis starts tearing away at Cammy's Hellion, to get to the brain base in the chest. But he's kicked away by Chase's Hellion, as Madrani and Kazu go in, as close as possible to help out. Chase does his best in order to fight off Nemesis, but this thing is just overpowers him at every turn, so that shows just how, overpowering this thing is. And, in comes Madrani laying down cover fire as Kazu, pulls a Hulk trying to box it with 2 cars on his fist. And, and ultimately Kazu and Chase do their best to go in on Nemesis, but they're no match for this thing. Madrani tries to pull out some gun kata robot foo on the thing, but even she ends up getting overpowered by it. And ultimately, it's only thanks to the combined effort, of Chase and Madrani that they actually start to kind of subdue it, but it's to no avail as the thing just pushes them away. This thing is just too capable and strong, and it's only when Valentina comes in with a well-placed shot to the head that the thing notices that, oh shit, I'm kind of outnumbered, and it makes an escape. But, Weller's just like, yo, we gotta get Cammy back. Her pulse is spiking. She's in great shock. Her drop time's gonna go too far down, and we might end up losing our Hellion. We don't want too much of this technology getting into the enemy hands. So as everyone gets Cammy out of there, Chase turns over the whole ether situation to the rest of the platoon, with everyone wondering what exactly Nemesis is, which, is the $1,000,000 question. Like, what is Nemesis? How is it able to do what it does? Because it seems just too capable for the most part. The Union is shown to be, very advanced in terms of what it can do in terms of military technology. But this seemed to look much farther out of their wheelhouse, and why did they ultimately choose a bipedal mech? And why did they only have one of them? It raises a whole bunch of questions in terms of the full potential of what the Union can do as a whole. But, this leaves the Purity with a lot of things that they have to think about. It's just like, because it took how many? 4 of their Hellions to even so much as scare the Nemesis off. So, that does not bode well in terms of our heroes. But hey, tell me your thoughts on this episode in the comments section below. What did you think about the Union's Nemesis unit? Oh man, that name is far too on the nose for me, but I love it nonetheless. And how do you think that they'll ultimately end up upgrading the Hellions in order to better go toe-to-toe with the likes of the Nemesis unit? And what do you think is the reasoning behind the fact that Union hasn't mass-produced the Nemesis units? Why did they only have one sent in? Maybe it's just an experimental prototype. Maybe there's more on the way. We'll just have to wait and see. But again, tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like, feel free to subscribe for more Genlock episode reviews. And maybe drop me a like if you like this video, and a dislike if you didn't. And tell me what I did wrong in the comment section below to better develop my videos for better quality as a whole. But until then, I will see all you Nemesi in the next video. Bye bye.